Started.
This is a simple physics principle. Whenever there is sound wave generated, it is going to resonate or vibrate a string, and the length of the vibration string will be as per the wavelength of the sound. The electromagnetic radiation also is a waveform. It is like a ripple that you form in the water. You drop a stone and the water is going to form ripples. The width of the height and trough, one full unit, is what is called as wavelength. Chromosomes are like threads. If there is a matching frequency that you will find in a radiating waveform, then that is going to start vibrating chromosomes in cells and has a potential to damage it. Next slide. The strength of the waveform is so much that if it is focused on a particular object, it can shatter. This is done by sound waves. Next. Next, from the chromosomes work in a particular fashion. They go into different phases of cell forms, and eventually they can duplicate themselves and form more than one cell. This is a simple cycle whereby one cell will divide into two, and this is also important for reproduction. Next. Now what is this? This is a very complex slide. It's what we call as a busy slide. Don't bother about reading whatever. The important part is photons are those small little particles of the electromagnetic radiation which carry energy, charge, and that charge can be delivered to an object with which it collides. When it does so, it produces a change, and that change can be detrimental. So when the electromagnetic radiation collides with a cell, its chromosome or the cell walls or any other structure within the cell, it has the potential to produce a change in the cell which may or may not be useful for the cell. It can be detrimental also. Next. This is a very simple structure of a cell whereby there are different chemicals inside and outside the cell which give it a property whereby there is an electrical charge on the cell. We just mentioned that the electromagnetic radiation has got simple particles which has got charge and there's energy, and the cell also has energy. If we look at different things that we use at home, there is electricity. If you plug in a unit and start, then it's going to start playing. The fan can start. That is because there is energy which is transformed or will be flowing from a wire into the equipment that we are using. If there is wireless transmission, now please don't move ahead. If there is wireless transmission of energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation, it can produce the same effect. In fact, we have started seeing in day-to-day market that we have Wi-Fi which we use. We use wireless chargers for the cell phones. They work on the same principle. Next. Now this is what I call as molecular machines. In fact, I am sorry, the projector is too bright, it's taking away the structure of a cell. But basically, this is different portions of a cell, different subcomponents of a cell, where the function is to generate energy within the cell and do the function of a cell. It can be to produce food, to produce enzymes, produce hormones. These are different chemicals which are used to perform function for the human body in that particular cell or distant tissues away from the cell also. Next. Now this looks like a very complex slide, but it is not. This is a slide which is what I call as a communication slide. You and me communicate. She will talk to me in Marwadi, somebody else will speak to me in English, somebody else will come and talk to me in French, somebody will say, no, I can speak Gujarati. Cells, how do they talk? It is technically called signal transduction. They basically understand languages in terms of electricity, chemicals by direct contact, and chemicals which jump across gap junctions. And these are going to work on those funny looking things are what we call as receptors. When they work on those receptors, they will start a cascade of chemical reactions, and these cascades are going to then perform functions which are useful. It can be useful for making a new chemical to perform a function like in stomach. It can form gastric juice. In ovary, it can form an egg. In the testes, it can form a sperm. But eventually, if these receptors are not there, if there is no communication between cells, then these functions of the cells can be lost. Next. These are other set of receptors, and here the important part is sodium, calcium, potassium, and certain proteins and enzymes. These are the most important communicating channels which are present in the cell wall. Now, why am I just referring to these things? Because when I come later on the effect of electromagnetic radiation, I will tell you why these will form a big difference in the function of a cell. Next. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, this is something which is showing effect of a hormone, where the hormone comes from outside, comes near a cell, and when it comes through the cell wall, it works either in the fluid. It works either in the fluid around the central core nucleus, or it crosses and reaches the nucleus. Again, this is a way in which there is communication between outside world and the core of a cell, which contains the entire code or program for running the function of the cell. Next. Next, this is just a slide showing more details. Okay, if you look at this cell, now this cell has got a lot of things that you need to ponder about. Don't bother about anything else. Just look at what is written stress over there. Now these stresses are of various forms. A cell can be starved. There can be chemicals and toxins. There can be electrical impulses. There can be excessive chemicals which are normal and natural to a particular group of cells. But eventually, what will happen is, if the stress reaches a point which the cell cannot handle, then on the right bottom you see there is a process of apoptosis or cell death which is initiated, in which eventuality the cell function is going to suffer. Next. Okay, I just mentioned regarding the ways in which the cell can communicate.